You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
Today I'm chatting with Casey Saran, the CEO of Spaceback, which is doing some really interesting things at the intersection of social media, programmatic advertising, and the metaverse. So first thing I'd love to do, Casey, is have you give the origin story, because you've been in the industry for a while before you went ahead and took the plunge with Spaceback. So what was the catalyst for starting the company, and sort of, what's happened since then that has caused you to sort of continue to double down on Spaceback?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Kevin. I'll start with the short version of the origin story, because we've been working at this for a while, basically I've been in ad tech my whole career. My first job I went to UC Berkeley, graduated in 2008, the financial crisis, at the time, and I stumbled into ad tech. My first job was at Weather Underground, optimizing all of the ad networks. And this was before programmatic. So kind of managing the daisy chains of how the ad networks would pass back to each other. And, there's cool companies like AdMeld and Rubicon and PubMatic first popping up. And because that was like really my first job out of college and where I got to know the industry, I got kind of obsessed early on around just publisher optimization, and then when programmatic and RTB started happening, I was went to Google, actually went to AdMeld and then went back to Google. So always been involved in programmatic from the early days. And the origins of Spaceback really go back to like when I first started getting my own seat on DSPs, and I would retarget my little brother, or retarget my mom, friends and family. My favorite was my brother hated Ryan Gosling. All those memes about like, hey girl, keep studying, like you're doing great. And so I found a bunch of those, put them in an ad server, and would retarget my little brother. So everywhere he would go around the internet, he'd get like nice words of encouragement from Ryan Gosling. It only costs like a fraction of a penny each time I would retarget him with this stuff, and it was hilarious to me, and to him it was just wizardry. It's like, how are you controlling this ad space that when you're in the industry and you understand how all these things work, it seemed I needed to create an audience of one, set up my bidder targeting that audience, and it's all just using things that exist, but the experience for a consumer was just totally something completely different than seeing an ad. So when I'll connect it to the origins of Spaceback, like stuff like that just got me obsessed really early on with what's the difference between ads and content. And as the delivery mechanism for ads becomes more accessible, I could, in a day set up a campaign targeted to when my little brother got married. Anyone who went to his wedding website, we targeted for event from the wedding, and they would see themselves dancing and stuff, and just things like no one has seen before. It just completely changes that relationship with ad space, and so that's what I started. And Spaceback, my co-founder Joe Hall and I, eventually started Spaceback. The name actually comes from "Take Your Space Back." There's all this space everywhere, and how do we give the space back or take the space back? And create things that feel more like content experiences there. So Spaceback, has evolved to be the leader in social display, where we help brands recreate social media experiences in ad units, and those feel a lot more like content experiences to users. But in the early days, it really started with like diving on like what is the difference between ads and content, and how do we, slowly change the relationship that people have with ad space, so that, it's like when you go to the movies early, you're going to see movie previews. And a lot of people go early to see those movie previews, and you don't think about them as ads. In fact, we don't even call them ads for movies. We call them previews. I think that's because that the relationship with that space has been changed from being ad space to being entertainment. I think there's an opportunity to do that with a lot of other spaces, and as they more traditional, out of home and CTV and these opportunities become digital. I think the opportunity to change that relationship and opportunity for brands to care about that relationship just becomes that much more important, and where Spaceback is focused.
Cool. Yeah. A related question, sort of as you invented this, right? I noticed that you sort of include social proof within the ad unit, right? So was that a given? Did you know from the get-go that you were going to include the social proof element in the ad unit, or because there's sort of pros and cons to doing that? So I'm sort of curious what your thought process was as you decided whether to include the social proof in there.
Yep. Well, one thing is we have learned that social proof is very important for performance, and we believe what's especially effective about including the social validation is it really helps combat banner blindness. And that ads don't have social proof, ads don't have likes and comments or anything like that. So when we put those elements in there, it shows that other people are engaging with this content, not like an ad, but like content and liking and sharing it. So we found that it's actually if we remove the social validation, performance drops quite a bit. So we do know that that's important for social display to be as impactful as it can be. And it's because that's really unique to social display. Other ads don't have that. And also it's for us, the reason social display works is because it's authentic. It really it doesn't look like someone took a screenshot of a social post and put it in an ad unit. So I think the likes and comments and including those dynamic data elements is important for us also in promoting that authenticity and making sure that authenticity is front and center when a user sees that content in an ad unit, that they know that this is something that they can engage with differently than a regular ad. And we actually even honor that in the click-through experiences, where if someone clicks on the heart or comment, we take them to that post so they can like or comment or share, et cetera, versus so it's not only authentic in terms of the count and the social validation, also authentic in terms of how a user can engage with that.
Yeah, that's really cool. One of the things we find for those brands that are lucky enough to get at least some organic reach is that, if a post does well organically, it's usually somewhat predictive of the efficiency and effectiveness of that post when you choose to boost it. And I'm curious if is also predictive of how well the ad will do once you turn it into a programmatic unit and you syndicate it out into the broader ad space. Is it can you predict the success of that ad sort of based on sort of the in-platform success of that ad unit, or is it not really predictive?
It's definitely a helpful indicator of understanding what type of social content audiences are engaging with. A lot of the brands we work with, this isn't just a solution for D2C brands, but some of the larger brands we work with will have or have multiple brands, multiple channels across multiple social platforms. So they will have, for example, a shoe company might have a different Instagram channel for running versus fashion or streetwear. So generally, taking the best post related to the category or the specific programmatic campaign or we wouldn't necessarily just recommend using the post with the most likes and saying that's what you should run, but I think aligning that with what are the KPIs of the campaign, ensuring that there is contextual relevancy, and then using that as a directional indicator of what the audiences are engaging with organically, is definitely how a lot of brands use our product and think about using social signals to figure out or prioritize what to use in Spaceback. What's really interesting too is that we do see that sometimes when something has a lot of likes and comments on the social platform and they post it outside, it depends what the brand's goals are, because sometimes those can drive more engagement on social platforms, where if they have a specific product or promotion that they're selling, it's best to use posts that are specifically relevant to that. So it really depends, but all this to say is most of the time what we found is that having social elements is better than not having social elements, period. So what brands shouldn't do is, we've had some brands, especially those earlier adopters of the product, that thought, oh, this post only has 200 likes. I think it should have more likes, so I'm not sure if I want to promote that yet.
Right.
And what we've learned is definitely promote that. It's going to help you get more likes. It's going to help you sell more products.
Is there a threshold, like below a certain number of likes, where you feel like, because I can understand the reluctance of the brand, right? The brand is like, oh, it makes us look small. It makes it look like it's not a popular post. And I think your recommendation of, hey, wait, use it to create the likes, so then you solve your own problem. So is there sort of a tipping point below which you say, oh, you should get a certain level of engagement first and then deploy it through Spaceback, or is there not any sort of guideline there?
Not at all. Yeah, I mean, we've found that, like I said, the social experience is what's effective at combating banner blindness, not just the fact that this got hundreds of likes instead of tens of likes. That doesn't seem to be what's really in that those milliseconds of opportunity of having someone willing to understand your message. I think it's more impactful that it looks and feels like a social experience. It's familiar versus someone looking to that specific number of social validation. I will say also, like, we do work with organic posts and dark posts. So dark posts are like Instagram ads that don't show up on the brand's organic presence, but can show up in ads. And generally those have less likes and comments because they're not discoverable. We do find that for a lot of brands, even though we find that organic content works really well, and that is sometimes counterintuitive for brands when they've created ads for Instagram that they want to run via Spaceback, and it's not 100%. Like, I mean, we've looked at this across our system and found that organic posts perform just as well, if not better, on average than dark posts. And I think it is because that it feels that much more like content, and really is that much more effective at tapping into a different type of engagement than a lot of ads. People ignore the space on the screen where they even expect to see an ad. Really, this is like tapping to that, again, those couple milliseconds of opportunity to get someone to notice something.
Absolutely. So when you and I were at the MMA's CMO summit recently, one of the themes that came up both on stage, but also in conversations over beverages, was that there's an increasing focus on efficiency and effectiveness of media. And so when I was thinking about your platform, when I was thinking about the fact that you sort of need the right message to the right audience at the right time, you have to sort of tune the targeting of the media as well in order to make sure that those things resonate at the same time. So do you have any tips when it comes to sort of segmenting or thinking about audiences as it relates to right message, right time, right individual, right, as people deploy your system? Any sort of best practices there?
Don't try to do all three of those things at exactly the same time. Is a tip. There's a lot of noise, and I think there's we need to, I think, in this industry, move towards more like clearly defining hypotheses and testing them and proving them out when we talk about like better practices for it's like what should be human decisions, what is and we deal with this all the time in creative, where it's not necessarily what's the creative that a machine is going to say performs the best. Or you talk about the old thinking of banner creative versioning, where it's like are you optimizing between a red or a pink call to action button? It's like sometimes that's not the point. So I think we need to in terms of best practices, really decide like what is a creative decision, what is a media targeting decision, and then figure out within those silos of the clear decisions, what are the levers that we do have to optimize. Because I think it's hard to give an answer to that, where some brands are only have media targeting at their disposal, but creative's handled by a different department.
Yeah.
So I think the main thing, and why I say not try to do it all at the same time, or is just be very aware of what you can control and how that's going to impact other parts of the. I mean, perfect message, perfect person, perfect time. I think that perfect message is where we probably need to start. Yeah, again, I believe that's where social display comes in. But we've spent so much time on perfect person at the perfect time in this industry. You think about all of audience targeting, all the evolution of DSP capabilities and measurement. They're much more about audience and media, and the message has really not seen much innovation, and especially it hasn't been innovated with those other things. Coming back to your question, I think bringing more focus back on what is the message will enable us to be plan audiences as part of that, but I think more attention back to the creative is really where we need to start.
Yeah, I would agree. Great creative can actually make up for a lot of less than optimal targeting, right? Because you can take what would have required sort of the perfect creative before, and now when you have great creative, it really is a rising tide to the overall campaign. So that's a great point. Similar
Yeah,
to
I'll
that,
have to
another.
follow up with you with this, but I read recently Google had a study that was like more than half of campaign performance has to do with creative. Or it's
Right.
just we emphasize so much on targeting and the media plan, but realize that there's this giant lever that is getting not nearly as scientific of an approach of how we're thinking about creative. And as marketers, if we want to, like, we have to be just as scientific about creative as those other things if we want them all to work together.
Yeah, that leads me to a follow-up question, which is, whether a person's using static creative or other forms of dynamic creative. One of the things they're always struggling with is sort of impression cap burnout, right? Of creative burnout. I got the sense, just thinking about social ads, that perhaps those don't face quite the same level of headwind from that perspective, because of the fact that the ad itself it's almost recreating itself, right? And the rising tide is floating, or the best ads are sort of floating to the top as a result of the way you can look at the KPIs and a variety of social KPIs, not just sort of old school KPIs. So do you find that you get more longevity out of the ads within Spaceback, because of the fact that they're social?
It's hard for me to say more longevity, just being totally transparent, because I don't think that ads should have a long shelf life necessarily. I think the problem is that I mean, sometimes we find an ad that works and we'll leave it up for 6 months because it worked. That doesn't mean there aren't a million better things we could have done. I think the challenge with with creative is just coming back to how often can you like have focus on creating like good new creative. And the best thing about social is that brands have a machine that they've built around creating and surfacing great social content. They have studios and models and influencers, and like this stuff's with whether or not Spaceback or social display exist. Like the brand social presence is alive. It's like a living breathing place you can go to engage with that brand. So when that is our asset library, that means that there's always new content that can be working with. So I'd say it's less that these ads can have a longer shelf life, and more that social display enables it to be okay for them to have a shorter shelf life, because there's always new content that a brand can be working with and rotating in. And some of the brands that use Spaceback best are they have new social content every week, and they're updating or rotating in those new social posts, and letting our system kind of optimize towards what's generating the best performance, and creates a beautiful feedback loop between the brand's social team and paid media team that just didn't exist before also. So some of our most successful brand partnerships are actually, the social team and paid media team can share a win when a social post actually drives results on programmatic. And then that social team is learning more of, what kind of content not only gets like, likes, comments, engagement on the social platform, but is driving the results we want for the brand outside of those traditional social engagements.
That's a great point. If the social team is creating huge amounts of content, then how should they cherry pick out the ones that they push into Spaceback?
Yeah, well, usually, I mean, we have options of how we can automate that and make those decisions really, really easy and automated, based on, testing and learning. Uh, Most of the time, there's someone at the brand who is choosing which post because they know which campaigns or promotions, or, a lot of times our partners will have, not just one programmatic budget, but for, uh, different lines of business, or different, places in the funnel. So we want to make sure they're using the right creative for their goals, not just, and the right creative isn't, if someone's trying to drive uh, product sales versus, brand recall, it might be a different post we recommend. So we do have like and our managed service team works with our partners to help make sure we understand what their goals are in programmatic, so we can ensure we're helping them surface and create the right posts. But at the end of the day, the point is, I think the fact that they're doing that allows the system to optimize towards what content is working best.
Yeah, well, you just mentioned sort of direct response KPIs and sort of mid to upper funnel engagement type KPIs or brand recall KPIs across the customers right now, your customers right now. What's the mix? Are most of them on the DR side, most of them on the upper funnel side, or are they sort of more holistically blending the KPIs together?
Not really holistically blending them together. Spaceback really is a full funnel solution, so they could, and I think we'd be very successful at that. But at this point, we're not encouraging our partners to change their, success metrics in any way. So I'd say across the board, we are. I mean, we're used for, everything. Very, very, DR, return on ad spend metrics, to brand recall, and like wanting to recommend brand different, like the kind of more survey type stuff. And I think the reason Spaceback works, or social display works so well across the whole funnel, is that for any ad to be successful, someone's got to notice it. I think even before we even look at click-through rates of Spaceback ads, our ads are on screen. Our partners share with us longer than their standard banner ads. We think we tap into a different scroll behavior, especially mobile in article, where people are used to scrolling directly past an ad, where in social people scroll into view and, will like or comment or swipe a carousel and scroll up. So even like tapping into that slightly different scroll behavior, means people are, on screen longer, people noticing more. And that's important if, someone's going to make a purchase, like an impulse purchase decision, or if they're going to remember the brand and recommend it to a friend, they got to notice it. So I think that's why we're a full funnel solution. At the end of the day, we probably have more partners using us for direct response, just because Spaceback does work every time, and that's where I think the easiest thing for us to, say like, hey, is this going to work better? My goal is CTR. It's like, yeah, it's going to work better every time. They
Right.
can measure it exactly against other banners they're running and see the same results the next day. So I think it's just because the feedback loop with DR advertisers to figure out that this is working, and create more and allocate, it's just that ramp up process is so quick with our DR partners, where in brand partners, when they're planning, their planning cycles might look more like a RFP cycle, in the IO process sometimes, where those are less kind of always on for us, but it's just as impactful. And our product supports it the same way. So it's maybe more of a nature of like how easy it is for us to compare performance with, apples to apples to like what other banners are doing in Spaceback, and then allocate more to Spaceback. Why I think so much of our business is on the DR side. But we're going to perform, increase click-through rate over standard banners at least 50%, and that's even if, a brand's not using, the optimal social post for like it really is just much more effective than standard banner ads.
That's cool. A lot of the DR advertisers that are heavy into using Facebook or Instagram or potentially using skippable video ads on YouTube, they put a lot of emphasis on that initial couple of seconds, really to try to figure out what the interruptive hook is. Do you find that those ads that are really interruptive and have a great hook end up also resulting in high performance within your platform?
Yeah, I won't talk too much about video yet and social and skippable video because it's so new, but we are live with multiple you know, brands, partners in kind of beta testing, and we're finding that social is one of the most engaging things you can possibly put in video, even in a living room. And it's not like we didn't invent this. Like you watch a commercial break now, and like you're gonna see likes and comments and social avatars and emojis on the screen, like guaranteed. The lines are already blurred between, like, social has already outgrown the walled garden. You're already seeing social on screens outside of, being on the social platform on your phone. I think we're just helping brands with technology to do it more efficiently, and what's more aligned with the environments that they want to distribute that content.
Cool. I have a topical question that relates to Twitter, which has been in the news recently for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the Elon Musk situation, but also just with regards
Who's
to
that?
what's that?
Who's that?
Who's that? Exactly. But I guess the question is sort of if you were able to sort of go in there and sort of redesign Twitter's ad experience, because it comparatively speaking, engagement tends to be lower, right? And also some of the targeting levers we've gotten used to within some of the other platforms don't exist to the same extent within Twitter. So if you were at Twitter and you had a chance to sort of redesign their ad experience, given what you know about what's worked within Spaceback and what's working in the other platforms, what would your recommendation to them be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's getting back to why people engage with Twitter in the first place. And I mean, I actually think Twitter was one of the first that had, I think a way that, influencers or, the vocabulary around this stuff is always changing, but, spend $10 and just promote my tweet. And I think that's probably, I mean, I thought that was really cool for influencers and a great experience for users too. And it resulted in content, there are lines blurring between ads and content. I don't think Twitter has had as effective as a product for large brands, and I think I don't have the silver bullet for them on this, but I think it's paying attention to how do you how do you have large influencers, or like folks who have grown beyond the spend $20 to promote a tweet, and what's the way of still having it blur, or still not be just such a blatant ad experience.
Right.
But and I think Twitter has a lot of really smart people working on it. To be fair, like I do believe that company and their CRO or CEO is amazing. But so I believe that they're going to figure it out. They're just yeah, a lot going on over there right now.
Yeah, well, we're all rooting for them. Like, we love to find, everyone loves to figure out how to spread their money around, right? And so we want a strong ecosystem, and Twitter is absolutely part of that. One non-marketing related question, but relates to a lot of marketing agencies, a lot of marketing tech providers, et cetera. You had mentioned that you guys are taking advantage of the metaverse and taking advantage of Oculus, and for example, to change the dynamics of your internal sort of teams and the way your employees interact with each other. So I'd love to hear how that's working out. Like, what are the pros and cons as you've sort of taken your operations to be sort of virtual and within the metaverse?
Yeah, it's fun. My co-founder Joe Hall and I were in San Diego in April, and we do these little trips together sometimes, just because he lives in Austin, I live in San Francisco, and most of our team is remote. And we get together just because spending a few days in there's no replacement for it. And we were talking about, what are things we can, try, differently, or like, you and I have the opportunity to get together in person once a month, like this, but, how do we get the rest of our team to have these kind of experiences without having, we do have an all hands once a year, but, we decided it was just kind of something we wanted to try, and we didn't really have super high expectations. We thought, let's send everyone on the team, the MetaQuest 2. They're a couple $100. It's not a super expensive piece of hardware, and doing all hands in the metaverse, and maybe, and just, give, and maybe it's a perk that, people have for working at Spaceback, that, we don't really expect people to use it every day or anything. And even if you don't like, you're having a bad hair day and you don't want to put it on, or whatever, like, all good. We don't enforce anyone to use it at all, but we just think that as a remote company, it's cool to give people the tools to be part of the future of remote work, or to be part of, like, everyone is talking about it. It's like, tirelessly, like, talking about the metaverse. And I think as a company, our team thinks it's really cool that we're in there, we're doing it. We all can, like, have our screen shares set up and have our Spaceback workroom. I will say it's not the most productive place. Like, we definitely joke around with each other and make fun of each other. And like, we've probably logged 10 times as many hours in walkabout mini golf. And we even have like a mini golf league. One of our engineers is the commissioner of our league, and more than half the company is playing in this mini golf league. That kind of stuff is like just building remote culture and being able to make fun of it together, but it being like, it really is like an experience we're all going through together as a company. And we're kind of deciding together, is this something that we want to be part of Spaceback or not? And I think just going through that together as a team and making that decision, I think we know that there's some place for it. We haven't figured out what it is beyond mini golf just yet, but it is fun for our team. I'm having a blast in there. So I think we're gonna keep doing it. We're gonna be working with a company soon that helps with anxiety relief, and people, post trauma situations. So offering the team like ways of trying that kind of stuff, and again, like, we don't have super high expectations, but it's cool to be part of it instead of just talking about it.
Yeah, well, it's great to hear that you're experimenting with ways to build culture remotely, because I think that's a challenge that a lot of companies in and outside of our industry are facing, is sort of how do we continue to have the great culture that they have, and then as more and more remote hires come on board, make sure that they get integrated into the corporate culture. So it's great to hear that mini golf is the first piece of that puzzle, perhaps, and then we'll stay tuned and hear what else works besides mini golf.
Yeah. Do you have a VR headset?
I don't. I've been sort of postponing it just because I'm super busy. But now I think you might be the catalyst that gets me to finally pull the trigger on it. So,
yeah, let me know when you get one, and I'll school you at mini golf.
Yeah, all right. So you'll kick my butt in mini golf as our first meeting online.
Exactly.
Well, thanks, Casey. I really appreciate you joining me and brainstorming about sort of what's going, sharing what you have that's going on. I think it's super exciting. I think certainly a bunch of marketers that perhaps hadn't considered using your platform should give it a shot. I'll certainly be recommending it to a couple of my clients. So look forward to hearing about the evolution of the video side, because that sounds super exciting as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Kevin.
Take care.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.